Visions of the Cosmos. Hello there. I'm E. Lee Wilson Jr., and today we're going to talk about blending art and science. Now, in order to do that, what I have been creating is a series of what I call science-based art, space art essentially, that covers the topics of astronomy, planetary science, astrophysics, and cosmology. And in the process of talking about the artwork and showing details in the artwork, we will be learning about those basic concepts using the artwork as a visual tool. Now, if you were to do a search on YouTube or on the internet in general for science-based art, you would not find a lot on there. But hopefully in the next few months or so, when you do that search, you're going to see me, because we are going to create a new genre of videos using fine art to discuss topics in astronomy, planetary science, astrophysics, and cosmology. So it's going to be fun. At least I hope so. When I talk about the science behind my artwork, I use a technique I like to say that I borrowed from Mary Poppins, and that is just a spoonful of humor helps the information go down in the most delightful way. So hopefully there'll be a couple of funny things here and there to make this more interesting for the average person, and you'll be able to learn things without realizing you're learning it. How cool would that be? I worked on becoming a full-time artist around 2009 to 2012, and then I started creating a series of beach and tropical paintings, and came to Florida every winter for a lot of what we call art festivals that are outdoors. And basically a group of artists will put up a tent city early on a Saturday morning, and or Friday night, depending on that, ready for Saturday morning. And we would sell our artwork and then take everything down Sunday evening and pack it all up and drive to the next venue for the next weekend. I did that for 3.5 years, and it was grueling. However, I learned to talk about my artwork. Now, up until 2014, that was all basically beach and tropical, because as an artist, we're told to paint your passion, and I'm very passionate about the tropics, the beach, and the color of the water in the Caribbean. And but something happened. Neil deGrasse Tyson turned me into a science-based artist, and it's all his fault, because in 2014 he brought out, it was based on what Carl Sagan did in 1980 on PBS, the Cosmos series. This new version was called Cosmos, a Space-Time Odyssey. I binge-watched a Space-Time Odyssey. And 35 years after Carl Sagan did his work, which was state-of-the-art at the time, I watched this with just the amazing special effects and graphics and the wonderful storytelling that the producer, Annie Drian, who was Carl Sagan's second wife, who produced both series with Cosmos Studios. And it was just, it blew me away. And so it was just so impressive. Now, when I look up at the night sky, I remember one of the things that Carl Sagan said in the original Cosmos, and that was there were more stars in the cosmos than there are all the grains of sand in the beaches of the earth. And I remembered that all that time. I was 20 years old when that first series came out, and I've been a big fan of Carl Sagan since I was a kid. And I've always loved the night sky. I've always loved learning about astronomy and those related topics because of Carl Sagan. And for the next several years, for the last 10 years actually, I was working on creating my work based on the sciences and I painted about space. And so it was just an interesting way to do this. Now, I hadn't been able to really talk about the science behind the artwork in very many venues. But in 2016, about 2 years after I started creating my Cosmos, or what I call my Visions of the Cosmos series, I had the opportunity to have my first solo expedition at the Eastern Florida State College Planetarium and Observatory. And I had about 20 pieces of the work that I had created, my Cosmos series. And I was in that exhibition. But I lived over on the western coast of Florida, just north of Tampa. But every few weekends, I would drive over on a Friday or a Saturday evening, and I would do docent tours, whoever came into the planetarium that evening. And I started talking about the science behind my artwork. And that was pretty successful. A lot of people came in. I talked about the science behind each piece as I went along in the exhibition. Now, one evening, there was a particular group of young people, and I went from painting to painting, talking about the science behind the artwork. And I played little games. Some of my artwork contained, well, most of it was beach, sand, and seashells, which creates a wonderful texture. But in addition to that, I also included elements like crystal dust, diamond dust, meteorite dust, and sometimes pieces of meteorite themselves, or meteorite fragments, mostly from the asteroid belt, but eventually I was able to get some from the moon and Mars. And one of the things they say, well, how did you get those? Did you steal them from NASA? Well, no, I didn't. They got here on their own, and that was the first opportunity for me to talk about the science behind the artwork, because those pieces of the moon and Mars got here on their own. How did they do that? They were meteorites. Billions of years ago, there was a lot of bombardment in the early solar system, and some particularly large meteors would hit the moon or hit Mars, and it would blow up a lot of material out back into space. And eventually, some of that material found its way to Earth and came through the atmosphere as meteors. Once they hit the ground, they became meteorites. Now, most places on the planet, it's not hard. It is hard to find them because of the earth weathering, trees, grass, things like that would grow up. But in certain places, like in the Sahara in Northwest Africa, and in the tundra regions of above the Arctic Circle and down in Antarctica, it was a lot easier to find these dark iron, nickel based rocks, and so they were easier to find. And eventually we learned more about the composition of the moon and Mars, and there were very smart people, meteorite specialists, that were able to certify that those pieces came from either the moon or from Mars. And if not, then it was pretty much the asteroid belt, which is an area between the orbits of Mars and Jupiter. So a lot of cool things happened in the meantime, and so I started embedding these in my artwork, and it gave it a wonderful presence. But by accident, I discovered that I could talk about the science behind my artwork, and therefore the visitors there at the planetarium got a little bit of an art education, or art appreciation education, as well as a little introduction to astronomy and planetary science and related topics. And one night, a particular group of these kids came in, and as I was doing the tour, I had a meteorite in my pocket. And so I would go from painting to painting, and sometimes it would be as simple as, can you find the meteorite in this painting? And I would talk about how those meteorites got to Earth. And then eventually at the very end, we would be at the very last painting, and then after that, I would pull that meteorite out of my pocket, and I would hold it up like this. Imagine a small meteorite right there. And I would hold it up and say, this is an actual meteorite fragment. Who would like to hold it? And of course, all those young people raised up their hands. And there was this particular young boy that was in the front, and he looked very excited about this. And so I put it in his hand. And as I did that, I said, this is the oldest object you will ever hold in your hand. It's 4.5 billion years old. And then I explained what a billion was, and all of the kids, not just that boy, you could just see their heads explode. It was amazing to them. They were so excited about this, and it was a revelation that they learned this thing from my artwork and from me talking about my artwork. And that was the moment I realized that I needed to be a science-based artist because I could use my art to teach these very simple concepts in astronomy, planetary science, astrophysics, and cosmology. And that's how I got started. And so this series of videos that you're going to see, sometimes one video per painting, talks about these cool aspects of science hidden inside my artwork. So I hope you enjoy all of these. I've got several. If you look on this channel, you will see other videos about these various paintings and about the science behind them. So hopefully you'll get a chance to enjoy all of these. And I hope you join us and subscribe to the channel, like each of these videos, and we can begin to build a community of people that love both art and science. So have a great evening or a great day, and see you soon at Astra.